Bring in our next guest here on this topic, Olawale Ismail. He is a senior lecturer at the African Leadership Centre at King's College, London. Very good to have you here on the programme, sir. Give us your analysis of what's happening. On the one hand, the RSF appears to be saying, yes, we agree to this ceasefire, the truce proposal. And on the other hand, it appears that they're now attacking the capital state. What's going on?
Yes, thank you. This is usual for armed groups when they are approaching negotiation or mediation to strengthen their negotiation position on the one hand, and to also reduce the negotiation position of their adversary. So the attacks on the capital, to me, has two purposes. Number one is to prevent the resumption of flight and operation into the through the airport, to deny the adversary the appearance of normality. Secondly is the military purpose, which is to prevent the airport being used for shipment of weapons and other, war equipment and, and the likes. So this is meant to, achieve these purposes. Perhaps the third one is also to want to share the spoils of the capital, such that when it comes to negotiation, the other party, led by the Sudanese Armed Forces by General Burhan, do not claim or control the capital, while the RSF is locked out of the capital, which had been the case since March.
Now, this ceasefire proposal, it actually calls for a transition to civilian rule. Is that something that the RSF and the Sudanese army is actually interested in?
It's unlikely that will be the case. There is a precedent, or there are precedents to that in Africa. Look at events in Libya. Look at events in, South Sudan. Anywhere you've had the country split down the middle, where you have at least two recognizable major armed groups with leaders, is always very difficult. So transition to civil rule. At this, the head of RSF and General Burhan, will they be able to stand as candidate? Don't forget the history of Sudan as well. How did Sudan get to this point? There was a power sharing agreement between a combination of the RSF and the armed forces of Sudan on the one hand, and civil society on the other hand. And they had actually rejected the transition. That peace process that was also supposed to lead to transition back to civilian rule was rejected by General Burhan as well as the RSF leader. So to think that the plan that has been put together, to think that the transition to civil rule will solve the problem of Sudan is unlikely. What will solve the problem, I don't yet have an answer myself, but I believe it is the Sudanese people that will be able to solve the, find a lasting peace. The imposed peace by Washington or any other group from outside is unlikely going to work. The war is going to drag on for years to come.
You're talking about a lasting peace, but if you look at the details, do you think that will mean that Sudan is going to be split again into sort of an eastern part and a western part, given the fact that the RSF waited until after they captured Al-Fashir to then say, okay, yes, we agree to this truce?
That might be a possibility. If you look at it, if the two groups maintain the territories that they have, effectively Sudan could be partitioned in the same way Libya has been partitioned for many years now. And you are going to have this, divided country where different armed groups are administering different, part of the country. So, of course, different countries will choose to recognize, different sides of, to the conflict. But you never know. What can solve the problem is a more inclusive peace process in Sudan that includes all Sudanese. It's not just the armed groups, it's not just the armed factions that are going to bring peace to Sudan. You need a much more inclusive peace process. So far, the Quad, made up of the United States, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Egypt, in my own opinion, are unlikely going to be able to craft a lasting peace to Sudan. The process needs to be expanded. The African Union needs to come into the equation. IGAD and other regional actors need to play, a major role in the peace process. And Sudanese civil society, both within Sudan and in the diaspora, of course, there are huge Sudanese, diaspora organizations. They have a role to play, in all of this. It is not just, down to Dagalo and General Borhan
Yeah.
to be the ones that will determine a lasting peace in Sudan. A much more inclusive process that is based on wider consultation, the engagement of wider stakeholders is the way to go.
Okay, all right. Olawale Ismail, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for your time here on TRT World.